The time has come to trailblaze, no seats in the sky. Don't ask why, to represent, play our part, come together with an open heart. Now the time has come to trailblaze, no seats in the sky.
Quite a week, really. Having made the decision to that I would stand as a trailblazer, conditional on enough other people standing, I then realised Claire, who should be joining the meeting actually, who some of you know from, she's probably the most regular poster on Campfire and posts some wonderful things. Claire actually was doing a lot of research, and I think we worked out that besides the nominations that I would have had to have submitted it in person in Monmouthshire, which is the constituency I would have stood in. So that just wasn't possible to move from Greece to Monmouthshire and get the required signatures in a constituency I don't really know because I've only just moved there. So I got the sense, though, from the feedback we had that we probably could have stood 10, 20, maybe even 30 candidates if we'd have had more time. So the rushed nature of everything has been the deciding factor. And it's great that we have got the first Trailblazer candidate in Emma, and it was really exciting to have that call with you and Claire. And your can-do attitude was very refreshing. So I just feel really excited to be getting some sensible, not just policies, but we can talk about that, but the whole ethos and values that underpin the Trailblazer thing are what's missing in a lot of politics, really. So I guess we can move on. When we came up with the name Trailblazers, two of the definitions that resonated for me, a person who makes a new track through wild country, and isn't our country wild at the moment, probably in not the sort of ways we'd want it to be, and a person who's the first to do something and show others it's possible, an innovator. And as you're the first person standing under the Trailblazer umbrella, I think you're definitely an innovator there, Emma. But one of the joys of the Trailblazers thing is the people who do stand can have their own particular issues, so they're not wedded to any party whip. And I think most of the people who would stand under the Trailblazers umbrella would probably agree that the whole political system is crumbling and needs something completely different that's far more based around humanitarian common sense values and principles, but with the flexibility to bring in that person's particular issues in their locality or the things that they're involved in. So I'd like to just take a few minutes to talk to Emma and give you a chance to give some background, really, about where are you from, how did you become interested in this, and yeah, how did it all spark for you?
Well, it very much came out of left field. So when I was in my 20s, I did actually do a degree in politics and psychology, and I wrote a very excellent essay about proportional representation, and that, I suppose, was the beginning of my understanding of our system, the first past the post system, which is so Brexit is probably the most obvious example of how flawed that system is, where basically 51% of people said leave, and 49% of people said stay, and it's carried one way, which is so disproportionate. And then, of course, it was utterly divisive for years and years and years until COVID came, and then they had something new to put to headline. So I wasn't at all thinking of, I mean, I was a bit surprised at the speed this general election was called, and certainly the speed from the call to the election. I was stunned. I thought it was going to be October. And then Claire sent the manifesto that she wrote to me, and she said, we're looking for candidates. And I read it and thought, pretty much every single thing that's on that manifesto I'm aligned with. I've found the last 4 years very challenging, as we all have, and my entire world has really crumbled. Everything I believed was true, pretty much down to, well, to pretty much everything. I'm looking out at the sea right now, and I don't believe a lot of what's going on in the world. I think the thing with the Houses of Parliament is that they're so entrenched in their old ways. it'll be a challenge to get in there. And if I get in there, or when I get in there, should I say, tomorrow, I don't think it's probably going to be made very easy. But, you know, rather than just sit on the sidelines and moan about everything, which is probably what I've been doing for the last 4 years, I think it's more useful to actually stand up and speak to people, and even just putting the energy into the world of change, I think, is where change comes from. It's manifestation, isn't it? As you're so right, Tamara, about how we use language, how we vision. I've actually been doing a skill set. I've been at home with my kids for 25 years, and my last one is about, I've done bits and pieces, but I'm having to go back to proper work. And I was putting my CV together and looking at my skill set and just thinking, oh, actually, I have all of those things that an MP, I am a leader, I can be quite influential. I like to consult, but I love to speak as well. I also like to listen. What's Claire saying? You'd love to read my essay? Gosh, yeah. It's written in hand format. So barely, but I'll see if I can dig it out. Yeah, so yeah, it was very unexpected. It was very unexpected. And then when this week, really seeing how they only put out the papers on Monday. You only had, whoever you were, you had 5 days to do this thing, which is really quite rude. And you sort of think, what's behind that? I spoke to the guy at the council and said, why so quick? And he said, oh, it's something to do with legislation. That doesn't sound particularly genuine to me. It sounds like it's a good way of crowding out anybody who might want to do something different. And I also feel now that those two, we were trying to find Labour's manifesto yesterday, which actually isn't even published yet. And there was this photo of Keir Starmer just looking like a bully boy staring out. And this was how he sort of fronted. And you look at these guys and think, they don't have any handle on reality and what people are actually living through. So yeah, I'm going to do my best to be the voice of the common person and to show. There's one thing in the manifesto actually where Claire had talked about, when we have emotional support, we can push ourselves to reach our potential. And I wrote on it, that's me. That's exactly what's just happened. Claire has given me this emotional support and said, you'd be really good at this. And it's given me the confidence to take that step and say, yeah, I'm gonna give that a go.
Shows the power of just one comment and how you can respond to that, really. So yeah. So your particular constituency, and I love the fact that it's Kemptown and Peacehaven, where better the name Peacehaven, you know, let's start a haven for peace and let's do it first in Peacehaven and then it will spread from there. What is it? What did it return at the last election? What do you know about the constituency and its inhabitants?
There are 70,000 of them. It's actually a huge constituency. It stretches from Kemptown in East Brighton to almost Newhaven. So it's about 5 miles long, all along the south coast. And then it goes up into a little place called Woodingdean, which is up on the edge of the Downs. I don't actually at this moment know what they are. They do have a high turnout, about 70% turnout, apparently. This is a very interesting question, Pete, which I need to know the answer to. Kemptown is quite, Jimmy Somerville lives in Kemptown, and it's very much the haven of the original drag queens, you know, not that it's a very, very gay, it's a very gay part of Brighton. I mean, a lot of Brighton is gay, but so I think there's quite a lot of free thinking down there. It's also the hospital is there. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think hospitals seem to attract strange energy, I find. And yeah, and then going further east, it actually becomes very, very wealthy. Rottingdean, Ovingdean, serious money, but they do have 2 independent councillors there, which is a good sign. So it shows that there's a bit of an appetite for something a bit different.
But it's really interesting. The fact it's on the 4th of July as well, Independence Day. I had a bit of a to do with one of my Facebook friends, not a member of Campfire, about the apostrophe after the independence yesterday.
Well, I
really
wondered if that was deliberate to leave that apostrophe off, because it
in a way, it's sort of, yeah, we could talk about that.
independence.
But isn't it interesting that we've got Jeremy Corbyn now standing as an independent, and today is the anniversary, the 7th anniversary of him almost getting into government. And I posted to virtually no response on Facebook a whole load of stuff. I'm pretty sure it's been weighted down in the algorithms, but I found on my phone I was posting quite voraciously during that election, and it really did look at one point as if he stood a good chance of getting a small majority. But some really interesting tweets that I've posted and other things in there, and the Sun's vilification back going down the Corbyn and a picture of him in a dustbin, you know, and just the weight that was against him, and he still almost got there. But what I was going to say is there's a whole huge disenfranchised percentage of our population who really were hoping that someone like Corbyn could overthrow and overturn pretty much conventional politics, and he was that close to being able to try doing that through the Labour Party, which would have been his next challenge. But now it just feels like it's the Uniparty out there. There's hardly any difference. So how the fact that Claire has gone through, and we'll bring Claire in. Hi, Claire. We'll bring you in a minute. To talk about the manifesto, which you've just upgraded and got oven ready for the election, to use a Boris term, which I hate. But yeah, the manifesto, and how important is it to offer an alternative to the Uniparty and effectively Greens and Lib Dems, which aren't doing too much that's different, or are they? How do you feel about the choices on offer, Emma?
I think they are very, very blurred. But I also, something that came up that Claire and I were speaking about yesterday is that these young new voters, they really don't like authority. They don't like being told what to do. We have a couple of them between us, and they don't. And that could be a real opportunity, because it's so top down, our political system as it stands. People just have all this clout with actually, when you look at it, very little genuine support if you look at how the vote is actually divided and how the representation ends up being. So that could be a real opportunity, is the young people. And I think, yeah, this full blurring. I mean, Caroline Lucas, I think Caroline Lucas just got into bed with the rest of them, and the Lib Dems. We were talking about how Nick Clegg back in the day seemed to stand for something different, and then just turned into a Tory in front of our very eyes, and abolished proportional representation. And so it's, yeah, there doesn't really feel to be a true choice. Or you've got these completely xenophobic. Reform, I suppose, is the obvious. Is people are going for reform at the moment, and it may be worth looking at, I think, taking a look at their manifesto and maybe cherry picking only the things that we're aligned with, but there may well be some crossover there. But I think they're quite xenophobic as well. And then you run into all sorts of other difficulties, which is not coming from the heart at all, and not seeing the abundance that we've got in the world.
Yeah, I'm just sharing the screen, but I put the link up in the chat for people that want to have a look. But it is basically built on principled, inclusive, local, empowering, human, collaborative, questioning, resourceful, respectful, and joyful. And how often do you see these words in the other manifestos from the other parties? Not so often, a lot of them. Is there anything, Emma, would you like to come in on anything else around the manifesto that you'd like to say?
Something something that has struck me over the last 4 years is that a lot of people have surrendered their autonomy quite willingly. And I think that's a real, we were talking yesterday about if we could find some catchphrase, and we actually ended up with promoting people power, because it's got a bit of alliteration, but something to spark that thing in us that a 5-year-old has. I'm going to be an astronaut. I'm going to be a doctor. I want to be in a whatever it is. That the whole system actually just kills. By the time people are in their mid-20s, it's pretty much gone, and they're just like, oh well, how do I get to sit in front of a computer in my living room and earn enough to put a roof over my head, kind of thing. And I think that's the to move the for people to remember that they can be trailblazers, because I think the system has really crushed that in people. And I think particularly the last few years, where people were behaving in really quite crazy ways without thinking. So we examined those values quite closely yesterday, didn't we? We had a long chat about them, and it's how we get people to remember that they too have the power. It's not about, but I think people almost want people to give them all the answers at the moment. I think that's people go onto their phone, oh, what's my influencer telling me to do? And it's how to convey that what I want to do is free people to be themselves and to remember what it is that they love and that drives them and empowers them. But I think the big challenge is reminding people that they even want that.
Yeah. And the corruption of the system. I noticed Claire in the chat said, I do worry what happens is people with good intentions are changed by the system.
100%. And I don't know if it's just money, or if there are bigger things that they start to feel their strings being pulled. And I mean, 37 of the Mexican candidates apparently died before they elected somebody. So I could be taking my life with my hands at this point. And the way they destroyed Jeremy Corbyn. It's quite incredible. If you're a threat to the system, a real threat, then you're in danger, I think. Maybe for your life if you don't drop into line. And maybe your family's lives, and who knows what's going on behind the scenes. It all feels, the way people turn is so extreme. not that I'm scared of such things.
Welcome, Diane. Would you like to have a quick check-in and anything you want to come in on this discussion? Good to see you here.
Yeah, sorry I'm late. It took me a bit longer to get to the chemist and then round to the bakery before I got here. Yeah, I've just put a question in the chat there and said, is it want to or realizing that they're allowed to? You know, people, you know, it's kind of like people not understanding that they have agency, and you know, and there is a lot of grinding down. You know, I get what you're saying there, Tamara, around no one listens to me, vote doesn't matter stuff as well. I agree. There's stuff going on with that. So yeah, but I shall just step back and just carry on listening. Thank you. Sounds interesting so far.
Thank you. If anyone would like to come in with any questions or comments, please raise a digital hand. So Tamara's already got her real hand up. So Tamara, over to you.
Yes, I posted some observations and just another example of how a tiny change in a word creates like a whole different angle. And I think that perhaps, you know, the mass formation that forms around one word that has been used in describing popular movements lately is one example of how we need to find that, you know, that impassioning phrase that creates a mass formation in our, you know, what we want to happen. And mass formation was certainly used, the distortion of facts and slight change of wording. They changed the definition of vaccination. They changed the definition, I think it was 3 to 4 times, with a slight variation in the phraseology of description of what a vaccine was, 3 to 4 times. And that created the adoption of a vaccine as might help or may prevent instead of prevents. that people don't know those things. They're not aware of the manipulation in a single change of whatever your take on vaccinations is. That's a crooked tactic. It really is, and it's used very, very powerfully in the moment now. The mass formation, the political. Yes, let's all do this. Well, yes, they're right. Well, yes, they're wrong. It's all divisive and impassioning. People get passionate, and that's, I think, what we want, Emma. You defined it as, I want to be an engine driver. I want to be a truck driver. It's like, yes, I want to make a difference here. And what I've noticed is that children are, and there's a lot of studies now showing that children who grow up with parents on their screens, the children in COVID who didn't learn to read facial expressions, they're hardly able to formulate original thoughts now. And the dumbing down of education, there's studies, and it actually affects the neurotransmitters in the brain, being fed information from externally, and they're not out there digging in sandbanks or falling over and hurting their knees. They're, it's all done for them. And the Chinese started it with a picture of blue skies in a smog. Nobody could see any sky in the city. So they have huge billboards with blue skies to cheer everybody up. With virtual reality, and you don't have to think or do anything, actually, if you have your pap-fed virtual reality all the time. The other thing, Emma, yes, life is in your hands. If you look at the studies of 34 doctors who disappeared in mysterious circumstances in America, and there was one Dr. David somebody who disappeared in a field because he challenged the official lied report about nuclear weapons in Iraq. Questioned that, and he just suddenly, the next day was like found in a field.
Well, this
just wanted to throw that in.
I see this is being recorded, so I'll let it be known if anything happens to me. I do not have any desire to die at the moment. It will be any suspicious circumstances. Consider them very suspicious.
Yes, take care. Not to be frightened. No way to be frightened. But yeah,
it's all right. Yeah. I don't actually fear death. I'm cool with it, but I'm not looking for it right now. But I'm all right with it. If that's my time, it's my time. But yeah, and
hopefully no milkshakes being thrown at you as you start to speak in the streets on your soapbox. So, Claire, you've got your hand up.
Thanks, Pete. Yeah, so Emma, and I mean this in the nicest way, I don't think you're that much enough of a threat yet to be worried about your life being, disappearing in a field. But I have a question around expectations, because you were saying about how challenging it is to even stand the short period of time, and then have you set expectations, what you hope to achieve this particular time?
No, but I think that's a good idea.
Oh, thank you. Because I was just thinking it might be, because it can sometimes be disappointing if you set your sights really high, but realistically thinking, you're not going to unfortunately be the next Prime Minister yet, but it's starting a journey, isn't it? So it's kind of like, are we getting the message out there? Who are we going to target? How do we know that they're getting it? It's all start of that. So I just thought it might be something helpful.
Yeah, that would be.
I think we were in such a hiatus to get the nomination in that we didn't have much time to do anything.
Exactly.
But we have talked about it a bit, and we are being realistic, and we've had feedback from other people who've stood as MPs before in, say, the 2010 or later elections, and they've said, look, it's really difficult as an independent because people are so fearful that, that the opposition are going to get in, that they will vote. They feel that they have to vote for one party that is quite big. So independents always have a tough time because especially if you're coming from nowhere and you haven't, your organization or whatever you stand for is not known or is not understood by people, because you've got you've got to try and put that across in a way that is comprehensive at a time that they're thinking about all the other big parties and which party's probably going to come in and be government. So I think the question of, you know, how you approach it as an independent is actually almost different from how you would approach it if you're a typical political party. You've got to kind of be really clear and concise about exactly what you have to offer that's different to the bigger parties.
Yeah, I think Diane posted, was it on Campfire this morning, on the thread about how you're conflicted because you've got a good Labour MP, but you keep being reminded that Keir Starmer is the head of that party and is part of the war machine. And should we be adopting this attitude that we're just not going to vote for anyone who's head of a party that is part of the war machine? Any thoughts on that, Emma?
Well, we've put on our leaflet about peace. I mean, the war machine again is a really difficult issue because people think they're doing the right thing out there. People think it's that these two wars are that we're responding to something real as it's being presented to us. So the biggest challenge Claire and I spent yesterday afternoon going through the manifesto and trying to put together a leaflet that would say enough with as few words as possible, because I think also we're in this world where people, they're so knee-jerk, they're just in this reactive state, they're scrolling on their phones every minute, being told what to think. So what we need to do is get in and break the hypnosis that they're in, I guess, with something. So we decided to do something really different. We want to make it very different to what would normally be there. And I mean, on the matter of war, we haven't really gone very deeply into it. We've just said, well, actually, what it was a brilliant idea of Claire's was to talk about peace rather than war, and to actually bring in, using the power of language to say, okay, what is it we want? How can we forget that word? That word is so triggering and jarring for people, and brings up fear, and then obviously rational thought goes out the window. But where peace, I mean, peace has got such a high vibration. And if just daring to use that word, not daring to use that word, but using that word on leaflet, I think might break the hypnosis, maybe.
Yeah, it will certainly be interesting to see how Andrew Feinstein does, who's standing in Starmer's constituency on a peace ticket, effectively. And Galloway did, in a way. He's not everyone's favourite maverick politician, but look at what he achieved on that one issue up in Lancashire. Yeah, resources, that's something we should talk about. And I can see Jeff's got his hand up, so we'll come to you in a minute, Jeff. But do you want to say a little bit more about peace? Because I noticed on the leaflet, which I've only received just before we came on air, you put health, education, good quality living and peace as 4 of the central planks of your nomination, your policy. So would you like to say a bit more about peace?
Well, isn't peace, if we were all working towards a peaceful place and actually everybody's well-being. I heard a quote the other day where it said, when you're more concerned that somebody else is not suffering, then we change society. That's where, because everybody's so concerned with their own suffering, they're not thinking about everybody else's suffering. So it's just flipping it on its head, rather than saying stop the wars. Again, you're putting the war energy in the world, where there are ways which obviously aren't being used for whatever reasons, and I have all sorts of theories about them. I know lots of other people do, about the military industrial complex and the money that's being made, and who is pulling these strings, probably much bigger, maybe completely invisible beings. But I think there is a thread that runs through humanity, which is that actually we do care about each other. I think COVID was a really good example, the anti-vaxxers versus the pro-vaxxers. I actually think everybody came from the same place, which was protecting their fellow human. I don't think there are many civilians who would choose to go to war. You walk around Gatwick Airport and you've got to take your shoes off. I went to Portugal last October, and I had my bag searched because I had a little digital camera in there, and I said to the woman, wouldn't have got away with this in the States, but I said, oh, do you get many bombs? Because nobody's trying to bomb the bloody place, but we've got this label stuck on us as if we're all trying to kill one another. I don't believe that that's what humans are naturally wanting to do. And so I think if we find those words that you're doing your heart there, Pete, but if we find something that words that the heart resonates with, and I think, who's read David Hawkins and his Power versus Force and the map of consciousness, peace is the highest vibration frequency to be in. And if we even just put it on a leaflet, it will go out to 70,000 people who will have that on their doorstep. Whether they put that in the bin or not, there will be something that is going to notice that word is there.
Great, thank you. Peace and song, yes, song and bringing people together through song, through peace, whatever. Jeff, you had your hand up.
Okay. Yeah, well, my thoughts on that, I would say peace in Peacehaven is probably quite a good slogan. I mean, peace isn't just the absence of war, it's a state of being and consciousness. So that's another thing to remember. I'm just curious to know, Claire, Emma, what you know about what the local issues really are on the ground as a local person. Now, I know the area pretty well, and one thing I know about Kemptown is, and I've got lots of white liberal friends that live there with their families, so it is a very family-oriented place. A lot of ex-Londoners, etc., are in that area. And Peacehaven is very mixed, as you probably know. It's got a lot of poor working class, as you might say, people, but also there's quite a lot of well-heeled folk down there. I know the Saltbean Lido has been recently revamped. That's where you're doing your launch, I believe. But one thing interesting about Peacehaven, it's on the Meridian line, and several years ago, I walked with a group of us from Peacehaven to Greenwich to walk along the Meridian line. As Pete knows, I'm quite obsessed with the use of our timing frequency as being a problem for our culture, for the humans as a whole. So that's probably not something you can throw in at this point, but perhaps internalize that Peacehaven, in a sense, is quite an important node on the planet because of it's on the 0th degree of the meridian, which, as you know, the British Empire ruled the world from that place, from Greenwich, really, from the Naval College there. So that's history. But going to the present, I think on that note is look at the conscription that Rishi Sunak's trying to impose. It's been my fear for many, many years that they're going to try and conscript our sons because of the lack of imagination in politics and the military-industrial complex, as we call it, breathing down their necks, and all the lobbyists and all the money they're making, all the money that Sunak and all these other people have made from nefarious things and still doing so. So I know you've got a huge challenge on, and I really, I must affirm you and honour you for stepping up to the plate. But I wondered if you've got very clear things that you can say to the people of Peacehaven appertaining to their local issues. Like, look, Farage has gone to Clacton for obvious reasons. It's a poor area. They have issues about immigration in their minds, and he knows what he's doing. Whatever one thinks about him, he's very astute. And, you know, you have to deal with people like him and be an independent candidate. And I wouldn't worry, let's forget all about assassination. We're not Mexico. There's many more guns in Mexico than there are in Britain. So let's move on from that. And I just think that, you know, you've got to, as you're probably aware, find the local issue and then marry it to the national issue. But I could suggest that promoting an anti-conscription ticket might be an idea for you. Thanks.
Yeah, like that idea. Anything you'd like to say on that, Emma or Claire?
Well, that's a great idea, and we can certainly add it. And I think having this, this is brilliant that I'm here. Thank you, Pete, for telling me about it. I need to go out tomorrow. I mean, there has been admin to do over the last few days, and getting the messaging really clear in my head. But tomorrow and Tuesday, I'm not working, so I think I'm just going to go down and just talk to people in the street and see what's going on for them. Bit of market research. It is a big constituency, so I'll start in Kemptown, but I'm actually moving to Peacehaven. It's the Brighton end of Peacehaven, but I will be living in Peacehaven, where I'm hoping to find a haven of peace.
I hope you do. Coming back to resources, which is a point Ken brought up, I know American politics is the whole issue of how well-resourced major parties are, dictates a lot of things there, but I still have a belief that we can do things at grassroots level here. So in terms of your actual costs and flyering and that, I think we reckon we can do something around the sort of £2,000 mark, but we are, a quick plug here for the donor box campaign. We are going to be launching quite a strong donor box campaign to see if we can crowdfund this. So anything you'd like to say on resources?
Well, yeah, anything will be gratefully received. And I've got people here, and just going back a little bit, sorry, I know I keep not quite answering the questions that you're asking, but something came up earlier where Ken was talking about voting anyway, but you know, and my daughter was actually wanting to get on the electoral register just so she could spoil her ballot. And it may be that's the way people will, rather than spoiling ballots, they might go, oh, let's give this independent a go. It's not one of the big names, and it's kind of got a bit more at least something happens rather than just a spoiled ballot. So yeah, the resources. Yeah, Claire and I have stumped up the £500 for the deposit, which if I get more than 5% of the turnout, we will get back in exactly the notes we gave to him. So that would be a good goal, would be at least to get the 5%. And I suppose, you know, we've also said if you can't contribute financially, then maybe some copywriting. I mean, I'm not a copywriter. I'm not sure that you're a copywriter either, are you? I feel like you're muted, I think.
There are various jobs that do need doing, and if people want to join the threads, if they've got any suggestions or people they know that might be able to come in, that would be really useful. Claire, did you want to say something?
I just thought, well, there's not going to be that much more copywriting once we've got the leaflet together. I think it's all going to be a lot of verbal presentations. Maybe what we can do is try to get slot on the local radio somehow, or, you know, like just get platforms in different unusual places, because I think it's how people perceive you as a person, how you come across. That's, you know, with people like Boris Johnson, who seem to be madly popular with people. It's about his persona, and really the leaflets are one thing that will give a message, but the strongest thing is always the person. I think it's like, do you trust that person? How do they come across to you? And how we get that exposure to as many people as we can. And maybe that is just sort of going down the high street and sort of meeting people. Maybe that's hanging out in the pubs. Maybe that's that was very lucrative the other day, wasn't it? Yeah, we
gave up at 10 o'clock last Thursday night. We were about to sack it off. I'd been shouted out on one too many doorsteps, and then I just went, oh, let's go in that pub. And we got our last 2 signatures, which was great. But also any feedback to me about the way I present myself, anything that's really sort of striking to you. If anybody wants to have an offline, just grill me for 20 minutes and give me pointers. Sorry, Tamara, I see your hand up.
Yeah, we'll come in a sec, Tamara, but you will be available through Campfire if people want to get directly in touch.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, I don't have a social media presence. I was married to a teacher for 18 years with an unusual surname, so I just never got into it, which I actually bless, because I don't have a nasty digital imprint that people can guess at me for, which is pretty.
How do I find you on Campfire? What's your last name?
I'm not on there yet. I've got.
Oh.
I've had so much. I've been doing so much. So
Emma,
much.
Emma will be on Campfire. Ken will let
Wall.
everyone know.
It's wall, WALL, as in bricks and mortar and.
Oh, I have a friend, Jeffrey Wall, who's a music journalist.
Wow.
Tamara, you've been waiting patiently there. Would you
Yeah,
like
only about 15 minutes.
We were just answering questions raised, so over to you.
Yeah, well, I have things I've wanted to say have mounted up now, so I'm going to talk quite a while. Emma, I really appreciate you. I think you're putting your money where your mouth is by moving to Peacehaven, investing in a house in Peacehaven. That, I think that is actually a starting point. People are very worried about money. Caroline Lucas is a good example of an MP who is very, very popular in Camden, in Islington, Haringey. She was my local MP. I've just moved up from London 2 months ago. So she's a good example. And I met somebody in a cafe, I think. We're just leaving a cafe. I said, "Well, I know you, don't I?" She said, "You probably do. I think we met on the platform of you asked me some questions on the steps of the town hall." That's a very personal relationship. She held my hand and said, "Lovely to meet you again." It's like, yes, I haven't met the MP here, and I'm probably not going to vote for him. I don't know, but it's very liberal. The Liberals rule here, and I really have a foggy idea of what they're about.
The only thing that I really know I can do is I have a lot of connections in the UK in the music community. So if I post about politics, somebody will see it.
I think that would probably be the most useful thing, because you have to be on the electoral register in the UK to donate any money anyway. There are all sorts of crazy laws over here. I don't think we need to have addresses. I'm looking into it. Even the fact that I'm standing as independent but have an organization behind me is a little bit, we're in slightly murky water, so I have to I'm checking all of that over the next day. But yeah, once we're up and running and we've got the donor box linked, set up properly, we please share that. That would be amazing. And with your anybody who's a UK,
like trailblazers.org, something like that, or you don't know yet?
We don't, because so there are people who've never heard of Trailblazers but know me,
right.
who already. So I feel like there are two ways to go about getting donations. One is Trailblazers introduce me, and the other way is that I introduce Trailblazers. And whether or not we end up having two separate donation boxes, I don't quite know. I think it's for me and Pete and possibly and Claire to discuss somewhere else first, because it's a little bit boring really for everybody.
Well, you should try to figure out if you could have a Facebook page, because I could probably share from that if you had one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I've managed to avoid. I am on Facebook, but I just don't use it, and it won't be It just won't be helpful, because you'll just see. I don't even know what's on there. I can't.
There is a lot of crap, and I'll admit that.
We have a Trailblazers Facebook page that we can promote you through anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the way to go, is to avoid anything. But we've got to figure out how much you can be involved with, because I know a friend of mine who ran as an independent ended up having to set up a political party. It's too late to do that. But obviously the fact that Trailblazers is not a political party, is just an organization. It's a movement that I feel alignment to. That's and like I say, they don't make this easy.
No, they don't. Nothing is easy anymore. Nothing.
We've got all the info. I'm sure Pete will post it and say, right, let this out now. Let it go.
I mean, I can wish you the best of luck, and I can tell you that a lot of my emotional, mental, and whatnot support has come from England for a very long time. I now realize that the English folk rock community has been my family of choice for decades.
Thank you, Ken. Yeah, it's good to reaffirm.
You can surround us in love and light as well, if you like, Ken.
Yeah.
We're
Say that again.
We're happy to receive love and light, and we've got this this person who does this thing called reset clearing, and we're going to ask him to do a session where he just resets the whole of the electorate. I mean, in the whole country, why not? Let's do it.
Good luck with that.
They're programmed, I can only vote one of two ways, sort of thing.
Well, that's the way it is here. God,
Yeah, no, it's very much the same here. It has been for centuries, as far as I can tell.
Mm.
Okay, we've just got just over 6 or 7 minutes. So if there are any more points people would like to make or questions to Emma or to Claire or to me.
I had a question for everybody. You know, does the whole idea of the system at the moment, the way it works with the two-party system and working and voting for your MP, your local MP to stand, how does everybody feel about, you know, involving more direct democracy or people's assemblies and other types of, you know, getting people involved in politics? Who in this group has got any sort of, I don't know, opinions about that or advice?
Certainly, we have some pointers from as far back as 2019 Camp Out, when we had the founder of the Sortition Foundation came and did a citizens' assembly at Camp Out. So there's an interview with him on our YouTube channel, I think, and we can tap into a lot of those resources. Also, the flat pack democracy movement in Frome, where I lived for a few years, was right at the centre of new ways of doing politics at local election level rather than general election level. So there's a wealth of experience there from Peter McFadden. A lot of that will be on our old site, so I'll see if I can dig up some of the Q&A stuff and post it on the news site. But if anyone else has any suggestions, please speak up.
All I can do is probably wish you all good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that was one of the things that was kind of interesting about going to the pub and meeting people, was that it felt so disenfranchised. And when I talked about, oh, you know, there might be alternatives that we can all get more involved in through politics, that actually their eyes like lit up and they started talking about how they just weren't going to vote unless there was something different to vote for.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really interesting thing, because it's a very positive thing to start talking about how we can kind of start to move the whole political system.
Yeah.
That's a big message, I think, apart, as well as the conscription and as well as farming. I think those three issues are really kind of important to people at the moment. So
Yeah.
Yeah, so any ideas about how to kind of make the system more immediately, easily kind of participatory, I guess, is quite a kind of challenge. Because obviously if you vote for an MP, they should be standing with a particular party. And if you've got an independent, they have to decide in Parliament which party they're going to side with on particular issues. But they can't really bring their own issues into play so much, because I think there's a system in Parliament which allows the opposition to table various you know, motions, but I'm not sure about independence, how you ever get any of your ideas actually on the table in Parliament. I don't think there's a mechanism for it.
You could well be right. Claire Ritchie, you've got your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Claire, it was just to say that I think I can't think of any particularly helpful resources at the moment, but I know there's a lot of thinking. I know there's stuff in my head around participation and sort of local decision making, so I'll try and have a think. But I just wanted to say that I totally support that and think that's a really, really good idea, and I totally believe it's a way of bringing people back in. I think that's because, you know, they feel so disenfranchised, and it doesn't matter who I vote for, that if they think it's brought back more local. I totally support and agree with that approach.
Brilliant, thanks.
Maybe we need to put something on the leaflet like your vote does matter, or your vote can count, or something that I think to bring that up to people. That it's not a waste of time.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone for coming, and particularly thank Emma for coming along and being very articulate and enthusiastic about your mission.
Yes.
So thank you, much appreciated, and we're all rooting for you. So
yeah, we are.
Emma, I'd love to support you in any way you wish. I'm quite good at dealing with anxiety and emotional upsets and stuff like that, and anticipation versus terror. You know, so yeah.
I was going to say, actually, tomorrow, I might well find a way to get in contact with you one-to-one and just a bit of, I feel your wisdom.
Yeah, I get quite fired up as well. So
Well,
yeah.
yeah, but I'll be looking for the nurturing, calming side.
Yeah, okay, I'm quite good at that as well, I think. So yeah.
And just
Good.
Emma, remember that it all comes back to the breath.
Yes.
To bring your awareness to your breath and promote peace in yourself, and then you can emanate that peace into your community.
Yeah.
Well, you're bringing peace to Peacehaven is really, that's been playing in my head ever since you said it. So
Such a key thing. I think we've got an advantage there. Yeah.
Railway section. I've got lots of ideas of people with specific needs that will be met by your wonderful approach, Emma. Yeah. Inclusivity.
Thank you, everyone. See you on Zoom or elsewhere.
Bye. All the best, Emma.
Thank you, everybody. It's been lovely to see you all.
Now the time has come to trailblaze, no seats in the sky, don't ask why, to represent, play our part, come together with an open heart. Now the time has come to trailblaze, no seats in the sky, don't ask why, to represent, play our part, come together with an open heart. Come together with an open heart.